Hey everyone, it's Rebecca here with the Mobile Manicurist Team Ladybug, and I'm here with November Beetle Box nails that I designed. So these are some of the items that we are going to be using. I'll give you a rundown now. Starting with what we received in the Beetle Box, the first thing that I saw was this Winter in Paris. It is a cream gel polish. It is really smooth. It's a Tiffani blue and it is one coat coverage. I love this color so much. Okay, next we received some North Pole Opaline powders. The first one is Elf Sugar. This is different than the rest. It is just really a powdery chrome. And the next one is the Toy Factory. This one is a pale pinkish purple color, and the next one is Santa's Favorite Helper. This is the neutral one out of the group. Then there's Mary Berry Twinkletoes. This one is pink, like a darker pink. And then the last one in the box was Snowball, and this one matches mostly matches the Christmas at Tiffany's collection because of the blue color. All of these have flakes. And then the next thing that we're going to use, the Christmas at Tiffany's polish, the Blue Vert glass polish, April Meow-ers, and that's from the Minx gel polish collection. From the Vintage Villain collection, we've got Fairest of them all in cream. And then also Velvet Touch matte top gel and Ladybug Luster wet look top gel. I'm also going to be using some of the gels from the Red Carpet series, Rapid Ready, Repair Rebuild, and Metallic Glaze. I'll be using Snow Pearl from our glitter collection. This is really pretty. It's a neutral. You could use this on a couple things that I'm doing. And then also I'm going to be using a clear dip powder. And I am using a 4mm brush, a 15mm brush, a 9mm brush, and we can't forget I'm also going to use a baby fan brush. I did go ahead and pre-prep 4 nails with base and Winter in Paris. This first nail, I'm going to take Winter in Paris, and I'm only going to paint the top half in a sort of like a French tip, like a reverse French tip, but going from the back, because I want to use this as the background for my little gnome hat. And so make sure that you just do a nice coat and try to get a semi-even line. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're basically going to fill in at the end anyway. So just the basic shape. And then I'm going to take my Gotti fresh canvas and I'm painting the bottom. I haven't cured the top yet. I just decided to go ahead and cure it all together. So this goes on pretty thin as well because it's a very highly pigmented white, and we're just going to make sure that we have our line slightly even. So even though these both really do have one coat coverage, I put my coats on so thin that it's ridiculous. You may not do this, you may do this, it's up to you. I did a second layer because, like I said, I put the coat on really thin, and I just want to have some good coverage here for my base. Okay, so now I'm going to take the Vintage Villains Cream, Fairest of them all, and I'm going to put a little blotch of that on my palette because I need that. And then I'm also going to take the Blue Vert glass and place a little bit of that on my palette for what we're doing on this nail. Then I'm also going to use Vintage Villains Pearl Full of Woe. I think I forgot to put that in the beginning that I was using that color, but I'm also going to add some fresh canvas because we may need that white as well. Then we need to coat the top of the nail with the Velvet Touch matte top gel just for a good surface to do our detail work on. While that's curing, go ahead and get the Ladybug Luster wet look top gel, put some of that on your palette, and go ahead and get your 9mm brush. Here's where we're going to work on the gnome hat. So you're going to basically make a shape covering the line between Winter in Paris and your white, and then you're going to go up and sort of make like a Hershey's Kiss shape, a triangle that sort of angles up and goes around into a point, I think we all know what this shape is, so I just am filling in here and making sort of an angle twist of the kiss. Depending on the length of your nail and the shape of your nail, you may have to do this more to the left or to the right. I went a little bit far over, and I recommend that you figure out your placement when you're going to do this. Now we're going to take some of the white and we're going to draw little drops and swirls. So start at the bottom and pull up, start at the bottom, pull up, and just fill in, because we need a little bit of white so that our colors don't get lost on the blue background. Next, you're going to want to add your pale fairest of them all to come in and swirl that in. I would suggest going from lightest color to darkest color. That way you have a little bit more control over how much you have in your hat. This is basically like taking the colors and lining them up next to each other and then picking them up and placing them on with the brush. But because our hat is so small, I felt that it was a lot easier to add the colors where I wanted and not have to try to get a bigger brush into a small area. It's very easy to do this way. If you want to try it the other way, you can as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my darkest color, the Pearl Full of Woe, and just slide that up through there until I feel that the colors are the way I want. Obviously we can go back in and add some other colors, like if there's not enough white, or if I want to add a little bit of swirl here, you can do that. Just play around with it until you're happy with how your hat looks and the colors that you have in there, so one isn't really overpowering the other. You could do a solid color hat, but I think this is really cute and it's going to pull the whole set of nails together. So when you're finally happy with the swirls and you've added color where you want, you can go ahead and cure this. I'm just finishing up and I will meet you back when I'm done with my swirls. Okay, at this point, if your hat feels a little heavy on the sides, I recommend taking off a little bit. Before I cure this, I'm going to add the little gnome nose. So take the fairest of them all, drop it down a little bit because there's going to be a band at the bottom of the hat, and just add a little round or oval nose, whatever you desire, and go ahead and cure that. Take your Velvet Touch matte top gel, cover the entire nail with that, and cure. For the next part, you need your 9mm brush and white whipped cream gel. So make sure that your brush is very well coated with the whipped cream gel. You can put some on a palette for dipping into, and we're going to make a beard. So take from the bottom of the nose and draw little squiggles down. Don't do too much pressure. You want these to be pretty thin. If you do it too thick, you can always wipe it off and start over because we did the matte top gel. But go ahead and just draw your little squiggles, squiggle, squiggle, down coming out of the nose and off of the gnome face. I don't think all of his beard hairs are coming directly out of his nose, so make sure that your hairs come down and you can add them as you need or see fit throughout the beard. This looks good to me, so I'm going to cure. And now I'm going to get the blue Vert glass and draw the line around the brim of his hat. We're just going to make this be the edge of his hat, just a little like stopping edge to give it some definition, and go ahead and cure that. Now I'm going to take the 15mm brush and I'm going to coat it in the Vintage Villains Pearl Full of Woe, and I'm going to draw a line on either side of this hat edge. It's basically the band that comes before the band of the very tip of the hat. So do this pretty thin. I had to go through and wipe it off and do it once more because I did it too thick. So just make sure you're putting this on really thin. You don't want it to be overpowering to the rest of the hat or the rest of the nail. And even if you don't do this second layer that's on the outer edge perfectly, it's okay because we're going to put another layer between the nose and this very edge of this brim. But go ahead, get a good amount on there and make sure your lines are, you know, somewhat even, pretty straight or straight to the brim of the hat. And like I said, if you have a little misstep on this part, it's okay because we're going to cover that up. I'm going to go ahead and do the next part, which is outlining the hat itself. I am using this 15mm brush for most of this. It's kind of tricky. You may want to use a smaller brush. I am just getting the basics part that I can with the bigger brush, so I have to do less line work on it. But I recommend going around as much as you can with the bigger brush. And I know once I get to this corner, I'm going to have a little bit of an issue because my brush is unwieldy around very, very tiny spots at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the other outline side and try to get around here, but I know once I get up to the tip, I'm going to have to switch brushes. So I've got it. Okay, so now I've got my 9mm brush, and I'm just going in and I'm touching up this very edge and getting to the point of my hat. When you're happy with your outline, you can go ahead and cure the nail. Okay, so since this has a little bit of a tacky layer from some of these things, we're going to take alcohol and really scrub in to get rid of the tacky. Let that air dry and then grab your 9mm brush. We're going to again use the white whipped cream gel for this, and you can leave this open because you're going to need a bunch. Just dip it in and do the little pom-pom on the end of your gnome hat. You don't want to cure this, just leave it wet. And then we're also going to add the brim of the hat, the very brim. Just draw the outline, and this is where you can fix any little missteps you had with the black. Go in and draw your line. It should be thick, but not too thick. You don't want it so it's, you know, a glob on there, but go ahead and go around the outline into the edge of the hat. It looks like I made a little bit of a mistake here. I went over the nose too much. So I'm going to just drag this out and have it so it's not too thick, but thick enough. I'm just going to wipe off my brush and try to clean this up. See if I can get this so it will get off of there and make the nose visible. I don't think that's going to work, so I'm grabbing a cleanup brush just with a little bit of alcohol and getting that blob that's on there off. Now I've got to go in and fix my brim a little bit more. I don't want it to go on the nose, but I also want it to look good, even though we're going to do the next step, which is going to cover this up. But just make sure you have enough. So go ahead and grab the Snow Pearl glitter. I'm using my little scoop here, and I'm going to cover the pom-pom, and then I'm going to cover the brim of the hat with the glitter. This is going into the wet whipped cream, and I like to make sure it's covered from all angles so there's no blank spots, and then we can cure. When it comes out of the lamp, don't forget to brush off all the excess glitter because we have one more step for this nail. Get your 9mm brush and get the Ladybug Luster Wet Look top coat. We're going to put a dollop on the nose and give him a little tiny raised nose. It's really easy to do this part because it's the tiniest drop. Just make sure you don't get it all over the place. Add your dollop of your nose and you can cure, and then that nail is done. For the next nail, we're again going to start out with Winter in Paris. I only had one coat on this, so I'm putting a second coat and I'm going to cure. Here's where we're going to use these North Pole Opaline powders. I'm really partial to Santa's Favorite Helper and also the Elf Sugar, and I don't know, I like them all, but I'm going to use the Snowball on this, and I'm also going to use Mary Berry Twinkletoes, and we might as well use the Toy Factory as well. So I'm going to just grab the baby fan brush and I'm going to apply these to the tacky layer of Winter in Paris. This gel polish does not need a top coat in order to apply the polishes. So I'm just going to tap some from pretty much all of them into the nail and see how that works for us. So at this point, it's a good amount of glitter and shimmer, but I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to take some Rapid Ready or some metallic glaze. In this case, I'm going to use metallic glaze because I've already covered it fully. And I'm going to add a layer of that, and I'm not going to cure it. And I'm going to take the bigger flakes that I can out of here, and I'm going to add them to the wet layer of this nail. This is going to give more depth to the chrome flakes and make it so they look a little bit three-dimensional and quite a lot more pop than just using this over a light color or a white. If you're going to use these over a dark color like a black or a really dark blue or something like that, they're going to have a much more intense color pop. But since my set of nails is based on the Winter in Paris, I need to add it in a wet layer to make it look more shimmery and glittery, as you can see. So cure that and then go ahead and add another layer of metallic glaze over the top of it. These are very thin layers of the metallic glaze that I'm adding, so you're not going to get a lot of raised up. But if you do find that you have some texture, you can file that and then go ahead and add your Ladybug Luster Wet Look Top Gel to the top of it for a finished nail. For my next nail, I'm going to use again a base of Winter in Paris all over the whole nail, and this is just the second coat because I only did one coat on these. And then I'm going to use Mary Berry Twinkletoes, and I'm also going to use Snowball, only those two, and I'm just going to go around the edge and into the wet layer. I'm going to add flakes. You can add it into a wet layer of another base if you wanted to, if you need more depth, but we're just really adding a few glitter sprinkles on the outside of chrome flakes. When you've got the outside edge covered the way you want to make a frame around the nail, then we're going to go ahead and get metallic glaze and cover this because the edges are coated. And we just want to cover the whole nail completely with this, and then we're going to go ahead and cure. So come back with your 15mm brush and Winter in Paris, put some of that on your palette and coat your 15mm brush. We're going to make faux spider gel. We're just going to slip on really fast, quick stripes and swipes of the brush to give it sort of a spider gel look without it actually being spider gel. If you do it really thin, no one's going to know. This is basically the background for our nail, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And it's fake spider gel or faux spider gel, however you want to call it. And then you can go ahead once you're happy with how many you have and cure. So now I'm going to take some of the white whipped cream gel. I'm going to put that on my palette, and I'm still using my 15mm brush. But first I'm going to matte top coat this nail and cure it. I'm going to get whipped cream gel on my 15mm brush, and I'm going to draw a line halfway down the nail, not quite all the way, but maybe 3/4 of the way over. And then I'm going to draw a second line, and it's going to be in between the edge of the nail and the middle of the nail line that I drew into a pie shape. Then I'm going to make the same spaced line on the other side of that center line going up with the whipped cream gel, thinning it out at the end. And then I'm going to draw a line, not on the very edge, but right next to the edge for this snowflake going up the same length as the others. And then I'll finish off the base of this with a line going all the way down the same length, so I have pie section. Okay, now we're going to get our 9mm brush and we're going to do a dot in the center of each pie section. So make it go up a little bit from the center of the snowflake, and Then draw another dot farther down in the center of each snowflake branch, because this is where we're going to be pulling our lines from, and we want them to be even. So take your center dot and pull up, and then the other side and pull up to form a triangle, and then go up on each branch until you have your little diamond shape. And you're basically making a V here for each one of these, but it'll end up looking like a little diamond shape. Another V, and finish that out. And then don't forget the other side where you have the branch on either end. Then we're going to draw another dot a little bit farther up. It's a little bit too close, I think. So I'm going to go up a little farther. And I just want to check the spacing on these to make sure they're far enough out. And then I'm going to draw another dot in the center a little bit closer in between the two. I think that's good spacing. And here is another one. And this one is a little bit too close, so I can't put a second dot in there. And I think I'm just going to take out that far dot altogether because I want these to be kind of tight. I don't have a lot of room on my nail to work with, so this is going to be fairly closely placed. Okay, then we're going to add our center dots on the V's again, the same way that we did with the first row, so we know where our drawing is coming from and going to. This will just help you go through this a lot quicker. So again, draw your V shapes, and these do not have to be perfect because we're going to go over this whole thing again. Just make sure you have the V shapes done and make sure it's pretty symmetrical. It doesn't have to be perfect, like I said, but make sure that your lines are the way they're supposed to be. Now we're going to come back through and we're going to go over every single line. We're going to thicken them up. We're going to make sure that they're pretty even, and I am going to do this, and then I'm going to come back and finish up with you once I get this done. So go ahead and finish this part and I'll meet you back. All right, now that I'm done with the last of the lines and making them bigger, I'm going to go in with my 15mm brush with more whipped cream gel, and I'm just going to double down and thicken up and make sure these lines are good. I don't want them all thick. I want them thick at the middle and then coming out to a thinner end. So I'm just going through and making sure that these are exactly the way I want them. You can do this. It's the finishing touch on these lines. Now I'm going to take the 4mm brush. I'm going to coat it in the whipped cream gel, and I'm going to add extra little V's or teepee shapes or tent shapes off the side. It's going to be just little wings on these snowflake branches, and I don't want them to go any farther than the width of the snowflake, the way it would be coming up if you were drawing the line, but I don't want them to connect. So I'm just taking the brush. Like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's a snowflake. It's hand painted. You're going to make this look beautiful once it's all done with the next step. So go ahead and add the rest of your lines on the snowflakes. I've got a baseline here, and I'm just going all the way around the snowflake branches and finishing that. Now we're going to take another line, a smaller one, and this is great with the 4mm brush. It's just perfect. You're just going to add another smaller line going up around the branches and try to make it as good as you can so you don't have to redo these with the second coat. But go ahead and get your little branches on there, and we're almost done. Just a couple more. I really like this snowflake look. It's not like other ones that I've seen. So, and then I'm going to add a little dot of whipped cream at the very end. One little dot at the very end of each branch. And I think that's good. Now in the center of these, you will do a little bit down in between the little branches that are down there, another dot. Okay, so get your clear acrylic, or go ahead and grab some glitter like snow pearl, and we're going to sugar this. We have not cured it, so we can go ahead and sugar it. I have done a matte nail, And now I'm doing a matte dip powder, which is a clear acrylic. And we're just going to sugar this to make it like a double matte, but a textured velvet matte nail. And once you've got every single inch of that whipped cream gel covered, you can go ahead and cure. I just like to make sure I have every bit covered. I'm an over coverer, I guess. I just like to make double sure nothing's shiny. So go ahead and cure once you're happy. And then you can brush off the excess dust and your nail is done. Our next nail has a base of Winter in Paris, and then I'm just going to put Christmas at Tiffany's over the top. So I've cured Winter in Paris, and now I'm adding a layer of Christmas at Tiffany's. It is a really pretty sparkly sheer gel, so you either want to use glitter over the top of it, like a sheer glitter, or a color under it. And then once that's cured, I'm going to top coat with Ladybug Luster Wet Look Top Gel, and that nail is done. It's really shimmery, pretty. Okay, for this next nail, I am using Winter in Paris as a base. I'm also going to be using Bleu Vert glass. And first I'm going to use April Meow-ers from the Minx Gel Polish. You are going to take and do the bottom third of the nail and cover this with the April Meow-ers cat eye gel, and make sure you just have a good base. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but straight is good. And then take your bar magnet and draw a line in the center of that whole thing, and then go ahead and cure. Now we're going to come back again with the April Meow-ers, and this time we're going to cover half of the nail going vertically instead of horizontally like the other one. And once you get this all on, I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but try to get it pretty good because we're going to only add a little stripe here next to this. So you want the line to be pretty straight, and just make sure your polish is even. Take again your bar magnet cat eye. This is how I'm holding it so you can see, and I just am making sure that I get the whole line with the cat eye to make a stripe, and you can see how I've got this. And now my bottom stripe, after I cured that, is not showing so much, so I'm going to take another little bit of April Meow-ers and cover up only the one portion that's not showing, and I'm going to add another bar to make it even, and then I'm going to cure that once I'm happy with the way the bar matches. Okay, so if you don't have April Meow-ers, you can also use Moonstone from the Tombstone collection that just came out in the fall. They're not exactly the same, but they're really cute, matchy. They would both go with this Winter in Paris nail that I'm doing, so you have a choice there. If you don't have one, you can use the other. Okay, now I'm taking the Bleu Vert glass, and the side that wasn't painted, I'm just going to cover that up with a thin layer of the Bleu Vert glass. We're making a plaid, so we want this to, you know, be different colors. We don't want it to just be the same color all the way around. I'm doing a very thin layer, and then I'm going to cure that. And then I'm actually going in, because like I said, I do my layers really, really thin. I'm going to go back in, I'm going to do a second layer of the Bleu Vert glass, just for good coverage, because I want this to be a little bit darker, and the more you layer this color, the darker it's going to be. So cure that, and then I've now got Winter in Paris again. That was the base. I'm going to put a little bit on my palette, and then I'm going to go ahead and get some of the Vintage Villains Pearl Full of Woe, and I'm going to put some of that on my palette for this nail. For the stripes, I'll be using a 15mm, and I will also be using a 4mm. So get your brush, your 15mm saturated with Winter in Paris, because that's going to be the first line that we do, and we're going to draw a stripe, and this is where we can fix any inconsistencies with the line and make sure it's mostly straight going down the center. It's all hand painting, so again, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Just do your best to make sure your lines are straight. And I don't want these super thin, even though my brush can make them super thin. I want them to be a little bit thicker, because Plaid lines generally aren't super thin, so just get your lines in the crisscross pattern to cover up the edge of where the cat eye gel ended, and then once you're happy with the way that it is, you can cure that. I'm just fixing this a little bit to make it a little bit thicker and making sure the lines are straight. Okay, now that that's cured, go ahead and get your 4mm brush, and this is where we are going to do the stitching on the plaid. And I'm just doing little tiny lines. This is where the 4mm comes in really handy, just to do these little stitches in the line. I always start in the middle and work my way up or down, because if you start at one end and then you go over that bump of the line, it's not going to work well. So just make sure you have your stitches going crisscross on there, following the lines that you already put in, and you can go ahead and cure. Then you can top this with Ladybug Luster Wet Look Top Gel, and that nail is done. For the last nail in this set, we're going to use the North Pole Opaline powders. I'm using Snowball, the Toy Factory, Merry Twinkletoes, and I'm going to put down a base of Rapid Ready Press-On Gel. I'm going to take my 9mm brush, and I'm just going to pick out some of the bigger flakes and little pieces, and I'm only putting those at the very top of this nail. So I'm not covering the whole nail, just the very top. I want a good variety, a good mix, but don't go too far down. I would say not even the whole upper third, maybe a quarter or a little bit more than an eighth of the nail I would do at the very top. So once you have enough of those on and you're happy that the whole top is covered, you can go ahead and cure that. Okay, so now we're going to take Winter in Paris, and we're going to paint the lower 1/3 of the nail tip. Make sure you have good coating on there. And then once that's done, you can grab a sponge stamper, or you can get a ombre brush and pull this out so that it blends into the clear. There's no wet layer on the other end. If you wanted to use blooming gel, you could to get that to blend, but you don't have to. After you've cured that, we're going to go ahead and get the Rebound Rebuild Rubber Base Gel in Ghost, and we're just going to apply a little layer here. This is pretty thick, so I'm just going to add some in a back and forth motion and maybe spread it out a little bit. It does not have to be perfect at this point, because we're going to use our 9mm brush here, and we are going to spread this out. So this Ghost is pretty sheer and blendable. I'm just going to pull it out and blend it into my color. I had already cured this, which if you don't want to cure it, you can blend it out, but I find it's easier to have a solid base on the bottom and then blend it out. And I'm just going to drag this around, trying to keep in mind the structure of my nail. You will realize at the end you're going to need something to blend the clear into. So here I'm using metallic glaze because I already had chrome over that. And I'm just going to blend that into the metallic glaze and the rubber base gel that is Ghost, and make sure it blends out evenly, again keeping in mind the structure. But this will level out and you should have a nail that you can cure. You may find that you need a second coat of the Rebound Rebuild Ghost. I'm also using Rapid Ready because it's pretty thin, and I can blend these out together and make it so that it works. Just again, remember the structure of the nail. Don't make it too thick. And if you need to, once you've done curing this, you can file it to make it the shape that you need. I am trying to make it so that I don't have to do any filing, but that could be a possibility. After that's cured, I would suggest using Velvet Touch Matte Top Gel to cover this, and then your nail is complete. So here's the set of 6 nails that I did. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to join us on themobilemanicurist.com for live videos.